Assignment education on KET is made possible with generous support from
kosare.org/kids.
Kosare Charities has given my daughter the opportunity to reach her full potential on everything. I know that she's destined to do great things.
kosare.org/kids.
The Vay Neighbor Carter Group at Baird. Wealth management with quality, perspective, honesty, and integrity. The Vay Neighbor Carter Group.rwbaird.com.
I'm Sam Corbett on Assignment Education, the show that shines the spotlight on positive things happening in schools throughout the Commonwealth. We'll examine important issues related to education while always seeking out the good news. This time, we talked to Kentucky's Education Commissioner about the challenges facing schools this fall and strategies to get back to normal.
I hope it's going to be a better than normal year.
Sweet spot for us is a biology major, chemistry major, math major.
Plus, a park built with a lot of help from students on a mission to honor those who have served our country.
I think it is important to learn from the past so we are not doomed to repeat it.
And up first, Kentucky's state education leaders turning to social media, getting out the word about free money for college. Right now I'm with Dr. Aaron Thompson, the president of the Council on Postsecondary Education. Dr. Thompson, thanks for joining us today.
Well, thank you for the invitation, Sam. Good to see you.
Help us understand, our viewers, what is the Council on Postsecondary Education?
Postsecondary means that what you do after high school, we coordinate our public universities like University of Kentucky, Eastern Kentucky University, my alma mater, all the community and technical colleges, University of Louisville, and we set items like their programs. We administer the funding formula. We set tuition. We set the strategic agenda for the state about higher education and how higher education is directly informing our educated workforce and our economy. We do a lot more than that, but we're the coordinating body. But we also license the private institutions.
So you're basically touching every higher education institution in the state in some way.
We are. In other words, I'm the head of higher education for the state of Kentucky. You can look at it that way. In the Council on Postsecondary Education, we are the representative body for the state and higher education.
Fortunately, we're coming out of this COVID crisis, hopefully.
Yeah, hopefully.
Talk a little bit about how your institutions were forced to react during the COVID and how are they going to be doing business going forward?
You know, I'm very proud of our institutions. March of 2020, we got the information we needed to figure out how we were going to help our kids to be educated as well as keep them safe. So immediately we went to a virtual online process, and within those first 2 weeks it was quite amazing to see how our institutions reacted, how they skilled up many of our faculty and staff to help our students still continue their academic endeavors, even though we went off campus, if you will, to make that happen. We're hoping, though, that many parents, families, and other even adult students feel very safe about coming back. We're going to provide you with that safe atmosphere, and if for some reason you don't feel safe, we'll help you to do that. So our goal is to be back in full force the way we were a couple of years ago, but even better.
Right. So there's a process for high school juniors and seniors as they start to think about college and filling out lots of forms and looking for financial aid and going through that whole process. And there's this particular form that's called the FAFSA that everybody talks about. Yes. Explain the FAFSA and how important that is and what your organization is doing about that.
Well, great question. And before I explain the FAFSA, let me explain really the value of higher education. During the downturn of 2009 and so on, you remember that time, and even during COVID when unemployment was up, most of the people on unemployment did not have a higher ed credential. Mm-hmm. We know that the most direct line to success in our society is still higher education. the more direct success we can have to that and an educated workforce, the better our economy will be. And so it is important that all of our students have that understanding, whether it's a 2-year certificate, could be a short-term certificate, or a 4-year degree, or a PhD like I have. We know that it's necessary. But there's also money out there for you to get, free money to go there. So the free application for federal student aid, FAFSA for short, is something you have to fill out to get that money. You know, last year Kentucky received $372 million of free aid for our college and university students to actually get their degree or certificate. Our state, through KEA, KHEAA, who really works hard to make sure the FAFSA is filled out, they gave out $272 million more. So, you know, $600 million of free aid coming to the state. But you have to fill out that FAFSA to make it happen. We've been a high fill-out state in the past, but we still are leaving about $45 million on the table. We still have many of our students that are needing to get that money to go to college. Mm-hmm. So we have been down, though, during the COVID time. Last year, we doubled down. Our FAFSA rates were down significantly. We doubled down, and because of that, we ended up with a better enrollment last fall than we thought we would. When we started this effort, and CPE, myself, and other organizations, the Workforce Cabinet, you know, KEA, Pritchard, a lot of others came together to say, how can we get more students to fill it out? Our Gear Up program, which is located here at CPE, the statewide Gear Up grant, they really doubled down. They even went old school and sent out snail mail to people. But we also went new school to really push to get more of our students to fill out the FAFSA. Right now we have about 54% of our graduating seniors from this past year, right, this past May, June, that have filled out their FAFSA. So we have to get a lot more, Sam, because only 50% of our graduating seniors now are going to college. We cannot make it on such a low number. So we've doubled down on that. We even did, a few of us even did a TikTok dance to get out there to make it happen. But bottom line, FAFSA is that item you have to fill out to send in to see what money you can get. And in many cases, and it doesn't matter if you're a young person graduating from high school or an older person, you can fill out the FAFSA to see if you're eligible. And so that's what we're pushing.
So 2 points that I would take away from what you just said. One, you really can't be successful in life with just a high school degree. It sounds like it requires something beyond high school, whether it's a 2-year, 4-year institution, some kind of vocational training, something like that. That's, I guess, the first thing. And second is that, in effect, we're leaving money on the table. As expensive as college is, and we all know about that, there are resources, which you just touched on, that families can take advantage of and make it a lot easier for their child to be successful and go on to some post-secondary experience.
You hit it on its head, absolutely, both of those points. I mean, we set tuition here at the council, and we've been the lowest in the last 30 years. The last 3 years we've been the lowest. So we know that affordability has to be something that we work on. But the best way is to get money that will help you to go. And you're absolutely right, you cannot anymore. And there's always an exception. Someone's got an uncle that did okay with a high school diploma. But that's not the preponderance of evidence for the preponderance of people in this country now, especially in Kentucky. You're going to need some certification process after high school to make that happen.
So, as you mentioned, the rumor is that there is this TikTok video that you were part of where you were doing some type of FAFSA dance, from what I'm hearing, and that it went very viral from what we're hearing.
All this on me so yummy. All this sauce so yummy. No, you won't just yummy. Yummy all in your tummy. Level up, level up, level up, level up.
Is that something that maybe you're considering giving up your career at CPE and turning that TikTok opportunity into a second or third career, or are you pretty much content to stay here?
Well, you know, that's a tricky question for me. Now, I haven't announced to my board, but maybe, you know, the TikTok video went so viral, I may think about that. Right. No, it was actually fun to do in many ways. We started this challenge. Obviously, TikTok, I didn't know what TikTok was,
Right.
to be honest with you, but we know that a lot of folk are looking at it, and normally people a little bit younger than me. So my staff convinced me to be the first person out there as we did this challenge, getting everybody engaged, right? In other words, we're trying to spread the message,
Right.
and even getting people engaged, that was spreading the message. So I did the first video. It did go viral, I have to admit, and you know, it's so viral it really surprised me. But there were a couple of young ladies at Garrett County High School, one teacher and her sister who's a student, that won the challenge, though. And when I presented them with the certificate for winning the challenge, I really was a little bit upset because, Sam, I thought I should have won myself, but no, it was really fun to do. And now I'm more known for that than I am
Right.
being the president of the
Right.
council.
Well, because you're employed by the council, technically you probably weren't eligible to win. So had that been a different situation, I'm sure you probably would have been the winner.
Well, I appreciate you saying that because that's the way I see it too,
Well, thank you very much for spending some time with us today. We really appreciate that and in helping our viewers understand what the Council on Post-Secondary Education does and how important you are to the entire Commonwealth. So we really appreciate your time.
Well, Sam, I appreciate your time. Appreciate you highlighting education. I can't think of as a kid from Clay County, Kentucky, whose father was illiterate and mother had an 8th grade education, and now I'm the head of higher education for Kentucky. I mean, that's what education will do for you. Right. So I appreciate you actually spreading the message, getting it out there, and letting people know just how important it is.
Right. Thanks.
And now to Oldham County, where students have helped build a park that's teaching history while honoring veterans at the same time.
Freedom isn't free.
Defending freedom is no walk in the park, but a walk in this park reminds us about the sacrifice it takes.
People keep asking, well, what is that thing on the campus of the South Oldham High School and Middle School?
It's the Veterans Memorial Park of Kentucky in Crestwood, created to serve two purposes.
One is to honor and recognize the contribution of veterans to America, and the second is to educate the public, and in particular the youth.
Stephen Davis volunteers as a board member for the park.
It really is something different and special, not just here in Kentucky, but worldwide. I've traveled worldwide, and it's a really remarkable place for what it does here.
And while the park is here to teach, students also have an active role in designing it.
It's like, yeah, I want to sign up. What do I have to do?
Bryce and Sebastian worked on the World War I monument before graduating from Butler High.
Tried to find, relations to Kentucky, things like that.
The students prepare the text for the monuments. They provide the research for that.
Jerry Nowert is a Coast Guard vet and Oldham County's Director of Emergency Management.
I drive by and there are classes walking the park. A teacher with their classmate, with their students, walking the path, stopping at the monuments and reading, and just learning about what this park stands for.
When you read the stories of individual Americans who made ultimate sacrifices, it starts to weigh on you a little more. You feel a little more of a burden to commit yourself to it. Like I went into it thinking it was a 3 or 4 hour project that I was just going to get my name on a plaque and it would be cool. But when you really start to read the stories of the loss and the suffering and the effort and just the nature of the war itself and the lives that were lost, that's when you kind of feel a little more responsibility, at least for me, to do the best job you can.
I did the research on the photos for the World War II monument.
Nicholas Pauley is a senior at Oldham County High, now headed for the Army.
This has helped contribute to me wanting to go to a service academy and join the military. After high school, I've been appointed to West Point, so I'll be going to West Point at the class of 2025. Keeping the history alive is extremely important to being educated people.
A path winds through the park, tracing history, with red concrete indicating years of conflict when Americans died.
And it's sometimes an eye-opener to the students and anybody else who walks through here.
They sacrifice their time and their family to serve our country.
Ann Helton's late husband, Don, founded the park.
Don had a dream of a $25,000 park. The dream exploded, and now this park will cost about over $1 million when it is complete. And probably it'll keep on going.
With continued fundraising, the park is blooming with monuments far beyond original expectations.
An Oldham Countyan who lived here is a retired master sergeant from the Army. He approached us and he said, "How much do those monuments cost?" And we told him. And he said, "If I pay for one for World War II, can you get it up before I pass away?" He's still with us, thank God. He's our hero in this county, but Sergeant Howard Griffin is the one who paid for this World War II. We have a bench that commemorates Medal of Honor recipients. There's a POW bench that commemorates an individual who was in a POW camp during World War II.
There's also a tribute to Gold Star families.
And the Gold Star families are those who have lost a loved one in combat or while on active duty.
This photo is actually...
I think it is important to learn from the past so we are not doomed to repeat it.
If one generation does not learn about what our vets did, then it's all lost. No one will know it. It'll be completely lost, and we don't want that.
We need to learn from the bad parts so we can never repeat them again.
It's amazing how the Veterans Park has grown in Oldham County. If you haven't had a chance to enjoy it, it's worth checking out. And now to the headquarters of Kentucky's Department of Education, where they're focused on making up for lost time and moving forward, overcoming COVID.
Right now, we're with the Commissioner of Education for the state of Kentucky, Dr. Jason Glass. Commissioner, thanks for joining us again.
Thank you, Sam. Great to see you.
We spoke several months ago when we really were in the middle of the past school year and in the middle of everything related to the coronavirus situation. We're now approaching the next school year, which will be your second school year as commissioner. What's going to be different this fall from what we've experienced the last year to year and a half?
Well, this past year was really extraordinary in that everyone was trying to find some way to keep learning going and make it meaningful for students in spite of COVID. But there were all of these steps that we had to have in place with virus mitigation efforts, the screenings, the mask wearing, the social distancing, the hybrid schedules, this transition to remote learning, and then coming back in person that we had to put in place to try and keep our students and our communities safe. So I'm really proud of the education community and the way that they survived that, and we did not see our schools becoming vectors for the virus in communities or in the state. We're not aware of any school-based transmissions in Kentucky, and so I think that's a testament to how well our school personnel and our students work to manage COVID and keep learning going. But we're excited about looking forward to this next year, and really the next few years, and how we think about what has been a disrupted and a really difficult past year, and then look forward to what may be 3 extraordinary years of learning and experiences for students.
Can our students and families expect that this upcoming year is going to be a normal year, quote unquote?
Well, I hope that it's going to be a better than normal year, because I think there were things that we learned in the course of this pandemic that can make our education system more flexible, more human, more meaningful for students that I think we can carry forward. For example, the reliance on and supporting students in being more independent in their work, learning in different ways outside of school, using what we call synchronous or learning together and asynchronous learning independently techniques. All of these things are differences that can make the learning environment more meaningful and rich and authentic for students. And so I believe those will be things that we will carry forward and hopefully make our education system better than it was before the pandemic.
So as we mentioned, you're starting your second school year and you're approaching your 1-year anniversary as commissioner. What's the 1 or 2 things that really stand out about Kentucky schools that you've observed since you've been in this role?
Well, I grew up in Kentucky, so this is home for me, and coming back here to do this work in this state is an incredible professional honor. But I've also been gone for almost 2 decades, and so there's been a lot of changes and improvements and shifts in the education system in that time that I've been away. I think the thing that I'm most impressed with, that's something that I was certainly aware of, it was here when I grew up in Kentucky, was the connection between the community and schools and how important that is all across the state, especially in rural parts of the state where you really see the school being the center of the community, and everyone identifies as a bobcat or a tiger or whatever it is in that community. In my case, it was a green wave in Meade County, but that tight connection between community and school, and so that's something that's still here that I think is really powerful in Kentucky. But I'm also impressed with and pleased to see that spirit of innovation that Kentucky was known for in the 1990s after KET, and that momentous, nationally recognized shift to try and improve learning that lifted Kentucky from the bottom levels of performance really up into the mid-range, which is an extraordinary leap. That spirit is here as well, and there's a real desire among Kentuckians, I think now, to think about what's next and how can we grow and improve our education system to make learning experiences meaningful and have an impact on our students for the course of their lives.
For many of us who were involved in the education system when the Education Reform Act kicked into gear in the 90s and saw that improvement to where we kind of rose to mid-pack, what is there that will allow us to move even higher and be even better as we compare ourselves to other states?
Well, one of the things that we've been doing in my time as commissioner is holding listening tours around the state. And really that's an effort to talk to the people who are in the schools, who are in our communities, who are working in the schools or attending them, and hear their perspectives on what's working and what's not working. And we call those empathy interviews. And we, through those listening tours, heard from around 1,200 people in the state of their perspectives and thoughts. So we gathered a lot of information. From that, we have, I think, a much better picture of what's working and what's not working. So going forward, we hope that we can develop a future vision for Kentucky that's based on the impressions and thoughts and feelings and perspectives of Kentuckians. So we're not coming in and saying this is the commissioner's vision or the governor's, the legislatures. It's not a politically driven agenda. It's an effort to listen to the people who are within our schools, in our communities, in our systems in the state, and hear from them what we need to do differently and how we need to change schools to prepare our kids for their future.
As part of some of the stimulus acts that are coming out of the federal government, we're seeing a fair amount of money that's flowing through to the states and cities and school systems. Is there going to be some opportunities with financial resources for our school districts that are there as a result of the stimulus acts?
Absolutely. We've had really 3 waves of COVID relief funding, and the last one was over $2 billion for Kentucky. Most of that is going directly to school districts and into schools. It needs to be focused on some kind of COVID relief effort, but really there's a great deal of flexibility on how school districts can use those funds. We've encouraged and supported our school districts to think about how they can, looking back over this past year where we know students missed out on so many experiences, how they can use these funds going forward over the next 3 years to create incredible experiences for our students. So I do believe that even though our students in our schools and the people working in them suffered so much over this past year, we are on the precipice of what will be an incredible 3 years of experiences going forward. We're going to go from a year of awful to 3 years of awesome.
Right. So you've done a lot of listening, reached out to a lot of people. What's the 1 or 2 things that, as commissioner, keep you up at night? That you wake up at 3:30 in the morning and go, oh gosh, how am I going to deal with this issue?
Well, this is a political job for sure. I knew that going in, and understand that when you work as the Commissioner of Education, part of your job is instructional and it's supporting schools, but part of it is political. I really hope that on the political side, that those in positions of political power will slow down and hear from Kentuckians around what's working and what's not working and where we need to go going forward. That our path forward is built on the perspectives of those actually working in and experiencing our schools. And that we don't get hijacked and derailed by politically driven agendas or reform ideas. That's what keeps me up at night, is can we make sure that our efforts going forward really are built on the perspectives of Kentuckians that are real and genuine and what their wants and needs are for our schools going forward.
Final question. As commissioner, obviously you started as a teacher years ago. So what advice would you give our students and our parents as we look ahead to this next school year that, as you suggest, will make these next 3 years spectacular, particularly as compared to what we've been through the last year or two?
I would advise them to take advantage of every learning opportunity that their communities and their school districts are going to provide over these next few years. There really is going to be an explosion of great opportunities to learn, to have incredible experiences, to connect with other students, for staff members to work and grow together, for communities to come together. While we've been sort of sheltering in place and afraid of this virus over the past year, there are going to be all these opportunities to break through that in some incredible ways. And so take advantage of that. Get out and have those experiences, and let's make these next 3 years incredible.
Well, Commissioner, thanks for joining us on Assignment Education today. As I think you know, our goal is to shine the spotlight on positive things that are happening in schools with students and administrators throughout the Commonwealth. And so it's great to hear that you're so optimistic about the future because, as you and I both know, there are great things happening every day in schools, and we just need to let people know.
That's right. Anytime you need an infusion of optimism, you just need to visit a school and see the students and things that they're doing, and that'll give you hope for the future.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
I'm Sam Corbett, and we'll see you again with more good news on Assignment Education. Assignment Education on KET is made possible with generous support from
COSAIR.org/kids.
COSAIR Charities has given my daughter the opportunity to reach her full potential on everything. I know that she's destined to do great things.
COSAIR.org/kids.
The Vay Neighbor Carter Group at Baird. Wealth management with quality, perspective, honesty, and integrity. The Vay Neighbor Carter Group.rwbaird.com.